Lesson 2, Pythagorean Theorem. Pythagorean Theorem. I want all of you to listen to me say it one more time, then pause the video and try to say it yourself. Pythagorean Theorem. Did you get it? I hope so. The Pythagorean Theorem, as we talked in the vocab video, is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. It only works for right triangles. A and B are our legs, and the side across from it, C, is your hypotenuse. Again, another word to make sure we know how to say. Hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. So we're going to practice applying the Pythagorean theorem to solve for the unknown length of a right triangle. Find the length of the hypotenuse of the triangle. So we have our right triangle here. We know one leg is 3, the other leg is 4, but we don't know the hypotenuse's length. So we're going to use our Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, to solve for the missing length. First off, we want to replace our variables with their value. So a is 3, b is 4, and c we don't know, so we're going to leave it as c. Now we need to evaluate our expression for each piece. We have 3 squared is 9, 3 times 3, plus 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16, equals c squared. We can add 9 and 16 together, 25 equals c squared. Now, our goal is to find c, not c squared, which means we have one last step. We need to undo the squared with its inverse. And remember, the opposite of c squared, or the inverse operation, is the square root of c squared. So we're going to take the square root of both sides to undo that square. And the square root of 25 is 5, equals the square root of c squared is just c. So our hypotenuse is 5. For our next example, we need to find the length of the unknown leg of the triangle. So this time we know our hypotenuse. Our hypotenuse is 7. We know one leg is 6, but we're not sure of the other leg's value. So again, we're going to use our Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We're going to replace our variables with their value. A we don't know, so it's going to stay a, plus b is 6, so 6 squared equals c is 7, so 7 squared. Evaluate our squares. We have a squared plus 6 squared is 36, equals 7 squared, which is 49. Now for this one, we have a squared not by itself. We need to get our variable by itself, so we have to undo that plus 36 with a minus 36. So we can get that a squared all by itself. 36 minus 36 is 0, leaving us with a squared. And then 49 minus 36 is 13. Again, we want to know what a is, not a squared. So we have to undo that square with its inverse, which is the square root. Take the square root of both sides. Square root of a squared is a, equals the square root of 13. Now we can leave that as the square root of 13 because 13 is prime, so it cannot be simplified. We don't have to break it down with our prime factorization. Or if you'd like, you can get a decimal approximation. One last example here, we have a word problem. So using the given image, find the height h of the 3rd story window. So if we look, the height of that 3rd story window and the distance away from the ground with the ladder form a right triangle. So we just have to assign our variables a, b, and c. So I always like to start with C, the hypotenuse, because it's across from the right angle. So if we draw that line across from the right angle, that gives us our hypotenuse, or C. So C is 50. And then A and B are both legs, so it doesn't matter which one we assign as A or B. I like my unknown value to be A if the unknown is a leg. So I'm going to say A is H, and then I'm going to make 35B. But you can do it the other way. So now that I've replaced my variables with their values, I can solve the equation. I would like you to try to solve it. Choose your answer in the multiple choice box off to the side, and then you can continue watching to see if you got the answer correct. To solve this, we are going to first have to evaluate our squares. So we have h squared plus 35 squared is 1225 equals 50 squared, which is 2500. We need to get h squared by itself, so undo that plus 1225 with minus 1225. We get h squared equals 1275. And then we want to take the square root of that. So the square root of h squared is h equals the square root of 1275. For this one in the situation, the best answer is going to be a decimal approximation. So we're going to use our calculator. Second square root, so this button right here gives us that square root, 1275. Press enter, and we get approximately 35.71. So approximately 35.71. That is all the notes on the Pythagorean theorem. You can move forward into your practice problems.